We have another amazing episode today. Today we have Kathryn Castle from CandyBox, Salesforce partner and consultancy. Thanks for being on, Kathryn.
Thank you for inviting me. Happy to be here.
And of course, the first thing I'm going to ask is CandyBox is a awesome name for your company. I guess how did you come up with CandyBox?
Yeah, I've had that question before. Surprise, surprise, it's something people tend to be curious about. There isn't a super short answer, but when I started the company, which was around 6 years ago now, I felt like there were a lot of quite serious names out there, sort of Black Mountain and Blue Cloud, that type of thing. And so I wanted something that would maybe stand out a little bit more. Um, and would also maybe be more in line with the type of companies that we work with, which tend to be smaller tech startups. So I wanted to find a name that would, yeah, maybe draw a little bit of attention, whether you love it or you hate it, and would also be in line with our target customer profile.
I love it, right? There's Apex, Summit, and actually my peak is the same. Peak 360 IT, I mean, how boring can it be? It's like, holy cow, right? I think CandyBox is awesome.
I mean, no offense to anybody who has a company with a name like that, absolutely not. But for me, I felt like CandyBox fit more with what I was going for and my personality.
Yep, and I think even like if you follow Kathryn on social media, like your posts, I think they're different, they're fresh, they're unique. So I've actually enjoyed following your posts and the things you do. I know I saw the one with Clay the other day. I thought that was really cool.
The one about clay, the tool, or clay, the medium about pottery?
The
Or both?
pottery. Yep, the pottery. I thought that was clever. I thought it was really good.
Thank you.
Yep. And I know you're based in Mexico. So how did you launch an agency, live in Mexico, and have a remote team? How did that all come about?
Yeah, very good question. It was somewhat of an accident. It wasn't something that I'd been planning for years and had a fully defined plan. Um, Essentially, before this, I was living in the Netherlands, which, if any listeners have been to both Mexico and the Netherlands, I feel like they're more or less polar opposites. Yeah, I was there for about 7 years, and it's great in a lot of ways. I had a wonderful time there, but I'd been feeling a little bit restless for some years, was looking for a change. And I got the opportunity through a friend to go and live in Mexico for a while. And as a European, I thought, well, how many times in my life am I going to have the opportunity to do something like this? I think maybe this is the opportunity I've been waiting for to make a change. So off I went. I was working with a tech company at the time. I was in their business systems team doing Salesforce, Zendesk, like various other technologies. They kept me on as an independent contractor for a while, but somebody told me that in order to be an independent contractor and not get in trouble, I needed to find at least one more client. I think this is actually not
Hmm.
correct, but that was what I
Right.
was told. So anyway,
Interesting.
off I went, and I chatted to my network and my colleagues to see if anybody knew anybody, and surprise, surprise, plenty of people did. So instead of ending up with my main employer and just another small engagement, within a short amount of time, I think I had 4 or 5 different customers. And what I heard from the majority of those early customers was they found it really, really beneficial and refreshing to be working with somebody that understood their type of company, which was, again, similar to the company I was working at: SaaS, B2B, startups, and scale ups. And for anybody who works within a specific industry, I think that that industry will have lots of unique quirks. It will have acronyms. There may be legalities that you need to be aware of. That's as true for SaaS as any. Um, and I started to realize that at the time, there was definitely an opportunity in the market to offer this kind of specialized service, where it's not just generalized Salesforce consulting, which of course has its place, but it's Salesforce consulting for a very specific type of customer. So from there, I decided to keep building upon the initial successes, started building out CandyBox, created the LLC. After about a year, started hiring the first team members, and I suppose the rest is history.
That's awesome. A whole side topic because the Netherlands, I haven't been there. but I always see like bicycles when they show the Netherlands. Is that actually true? Like, is it actually a lot
Yeah.
of bicycles?
Oh, yeah, it's totally true. In the Netherlands, you do not need to be afraid of cars or vehicles. You need to be afraid of the bicycles. The cyclists have they're lawless. They own the roads. I was one of them once upon a time. I think if I went back there now, I would treat them with a healthy respect. But no, it's great. In the Netherlands, it's very flat. There's a lot of investment put into the cycling infrastructure, so you can cycle almost anywhere, pretty much across
Nice.
the country, um, which is really, really good for your health. I was
For
definitely in really
sure.
good shape when I lived there.
That's awesome. I have to check it out someday for sure. Um, so do you, I guess, do you feel like you're an entrepreneur at heart, or did you get kind of, did the universe and things just kind of send you in a direction
Mm.
that kind of launched this and it all just happened without even you realizing it because it went so fast?
That's a really interesting question. So I think if you asked me before starting CandyBox if I was entrepreneurial, I would have said no. I think even if you'd asked me a year or two ago if I was an entrepreneur, I might have maybe been a bit, uh, dismissive of the label, like,
Right.
me? No, I
Right.
just
Yep.
started a small business. But maybe there is something to it. Um, I'm not sure if I hadn't had this opportunity sort of fortuitously land in my lap, whether I would have ended up pursuing a business, maybe, maybe not. Um, if I look back on my, work history, I guess there are some examples of entrepreneurial spirit. I did have a go. It was not very successful, but I did have a go when I was in my early 20s at being a freelance translator. And I was going out and trying to find business there and did have some successes, but, ultimately wasn't ready for everything that entrepreneurship entails at that point.
Right. Right.
So
Yep.
yeah, it's a hard question to answer. Like maybe there was something all along, and I just needed the right environment to explore it.
Awesome. That's awesome. And speaking of that, so as you're going through this change, right, you're moving, you're trying to launch or at least start hiring people. I guess what were some of the challenges that you encountered going through that phase and launching your agency?
Yeah, there were a lot. There still are. I think running a business is always going to be challenging. It's never something that you're like, I've learned it. Now I'm a business owner who can just do everything, without any effort or struggle. Like things are always changing. It's part of the fun. It's part of the challenge. Um, but if I think back, what were things that were difficult? I think if you're a first time entrepreneur, you just don't know how any of this stuff works. For me, that was probably doubly true because I started my business in the US. Although I'd worked with a US company and colleagues and customers for some 5-ish years at that point, I was not familiar with how that would work as a business owner. So I had to learn a lot of that on the fly, And if you're in a situation like me, you are already managing your customers and that side of things and trying to figure out the administrative side simultaneously. That
Right.
teaches you a lot of time management skills and prioritization skills very quickly. And I think for me, one of the other things that I learned early, which I know that some other people struggle with, is to delegate what you can. For me, I'm really not a person who likes the sort of administrative nitty gritty, which has its pros and cons. Sometimes there have been downsides to me not wanting to get into the weeds of the business. But I felt strongly motivated in those early days to not have to do additional operational overhead.
Right.
So I found, for example, a really great bookkeeper to work with pretty early on. I wouldn't say that it was strictly necessary, but for me, that was really, I think it was a good decision because it freed up a lot of my time and mental bandwidth to focus on areas I was actually good at.
Right.
Voices, tracking that kind of stuff, not a huge strength. And for everybody, what those specific things are that you delegate is it's going to vary. You know, other people may have amazing attention to detail and would never want to hand off the things that I handed off, but maybe they wouldn't want to be running all of the customer engagements. You know, maybe they would want to be looking for somebody earlier on who's going to be that first point of contact so that they can work on the technical side. Um,
Right. Right.
Essentially, I think what I'm trying to say is your mileage may vary. I'm a big fan of delegation because as an entrepreneur, there's going to be so many demands on your time. You really can't do all of them at a high level, at least. Um, but you have to be honest with yourself as regards to like, what am I actually good at? What do I like doing? Where's the crossover? What else can I get rid of and give to somebody who does have skills in those areas?
That makes sense because I was when you before you brought up the invoices and accounting stuff, though probably the biggest mistake I made
Mm,
back when I was starting up and launching, it was I was like, I can just install QuickBooks. I'll take care of all that stuff. I'll do the taxes. I'll do all the LLC stuff. And it consumed so much of my time. QuickBooks, if you launch it and you start actually working in it, it's like, what this is what the heck is going on here? And trying to track all the accounting side and the finances and the invoices and working with accounts payable, accounts receivable. That's probably the biggest mistake I made because I think I suffered on the delivery side where I probably should have spent most of my time or lead generation marketing. I
yeah.
got way too much in the minutia of the administrative side. So I think that was a wise choice that you made even on that in the beginning. That's the way to go.
It's tough to find the balance, isn't it? You know, because you don't necessarily want to be completely ignorant to how certain areas of your business runs. So
Right.
I think there's some kind of sweet spot that's really hard to hit between having like a bit of knowledge so that you can engage with the people who are doing that role and you know whether they're doing it correctly or not
Right.
versus trying to do everything and keep tabs on everything and micromanaging every single aspect of the business to its own detriment.
Yep. I know because it is nice now that I have the background, at least trying it a bit, so at least I could have an intelligent conversation with each of the areas.
Yeah.
I agree. That's really good actually recommendation and background that I think actually might help a lot of people. So you got going, and I know you talked about differentiation. So
Mm.
how I guess from an ideal client profile perspective, I know you talked about SaaS and stuff like that. So who are like your ideal clients that you work with?
Yeah, so we're pretty closely focused on B2B SaaS companies. I would describe them as startups and scale ups primarily. What that means in terms of employee size is a bit broad, but generally speaking, on the smallest side, it's like 25 to 30 employees, and on the larger side, maybe 5 to 600. I will say there's some customers where we've been with them a long time at this point, several years, and they've grown larger than that, which is great. But I feel that the the kind of service that fits a SaaS scale up as opposed to an enterprise level of like steady state, maybe even public tech company is very different. So we're trying to operate in that sort of SMB mid market space, particularly when companies are trying to understand how to get to scale. So maybe they have a CRM already, maybe they actually don't. Sometimes we do have companies that come to us and they're still working out of spreadsheets or whatnot. But they're getting into a growth tear potentially, or they know that that's going to happen in the not too far future. They could be going for funding. They might know that secretly they just got funding and they're just not able to announce it yet. Um, and there's this awareness of whatever we have right now in terms of CRM and associated systems is not going to be sufficient to take us where we want to go. You know, it's either already holding us back or it very soon is going to start holding us back.
That that was such a great explanation from like who your clients are because I think typically a lot of partners or consultants talk about the Salesforce side of things and the cool thing is you didn't bring up Salesforce once. You knew the customer, you knew what their challenges were, and like you were talking like the business speak. I think that's like a powerful aspect to like running a consultancy and agency is having that business knowledge. Because it sounds like you're even not only just doing the technical hands-on work, but you're essentially like in an advisory role as well, and helping them at least here's what's coming ahead. You understand their challenges, and you're partnering with them on more aspects than just code, essentially.
Yeah, that I didn't actually notice that I hadn't said the word Salesforce, but I think you're right, which is kind of funny. But yeah, broadly, I would say I agree with everything you just said. You probably put it better than I could. Yeah, we definitely do. We do step a bit outside of just like pure CRM. You know, it's not just about how to build a flow or like writing some Apex. It's more philosophical even. You know, how should you think about your CRM? Like, what is the role of the CRM in your business, and what does it need to look like in order for you to hit your growth goals? Like, what does your overall tech stack look like as well? Because although, you know, we say that we're Salesforce, HubSpot, and revenue operations partners, which is in some ways broad. But like I say, we specialize with the type of companies we work with. But in reality, like we're not just working on those two CRMs. Like it's everything that integrates with them as well. It's the whole customer journey. You know, we'll help customers with vendor assessments. You know, they say, hey, we've realized we need a platform for our customer success team in order to, you know, analyze sentiment and help out with identifying upsell opportunities and just all kinds of different things. Like, okay, great. Here's what we've seen. You know, other customers of ours who are similar to you, a similar size, a similar growth stage, using, like, here's some pros and cons of each. Salesforce does come into play in conversations like that, but it's, I guess, more in the it's like part of the overall picture, if that makes sense. You know, for example, like, okay, we know that Salesforce is at the heart of everything. You want the data to feed into Salesforce, so that the rest of the business can use it. So make sure that you choose a tool that has a great integration. Or if it doesn't, we'll need to think about those data pipelines. But the conversation isn't only about Salesforce.
That's perfect. That's a great model, and especially with the ecosystem and the technologies kind of changing and new competitors coming up, and just I think that broad expertise you have and helping clients and helping them with other things outside of Salesforce is a fantastic business approach and client approach. Um, so in terms of differentiation, I mean, I'm kind of hearing it already, but I know you have CandyBox and what you're doing there. I guess you already kind of talked about it already, but is that how you differentiate yourself or feel you differentiate yourself from maybe other Salesforce partners, or how do you frame in your mind how you differentiate CandyBox?
Yeah, I definitely think it's part of it. But I'm not, you know, I'm obviously not completely unique in the marketplace. There are other consulting practices that have SaaS expertise, or they prefer to work in like SMB or mid market. So it's not so much that I think that we're uh, completely unique and there's nobody else like us. I think that the types of company we work with for sure is the main initial differentiating factor. You know, if you're a manufacturing
Interesting.
company, you probably don't go with us. You find somebody who specializes in manufacturing, for example.
Right.
But that isn't to say that every single B2B SaaS company or startup or scale up is going to be a perfect fit for us. We have a distinct working style. I would say that our working style mimics more the working style of the companies that we work with, in that it's very remote friendly. There's a lot of asynchronous collaboration, which I know sounds really fancy, probably, but by that I mean, you know, we use a lot of things like Slack,
Like, yeah, yeah.
you know, and we're hopping in and out of huddles and calls and just sort of collabing asynchronously as needed. which some practices don't do that. They take a much more I don't know if structured is the word that I'm looking for, but say maybe a more formalized approach.
Right.
Whereas for us, we want to get in the weeds with the companies that we're working with. We want them to feel like we're actually part of the team, which does often happen. Recently, we had one of our customers take the consultant on their account to their team
Oh.
offsite, which was very nice.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so yeah, that's I think that's another differentiating factor. If you want to work with a consulting firm that feels, more sort of slow moving and structured in that way, we might not be what you're looking for. But if you know that you need to move fast and you need a consulting practice that understands what it's like to be at this type of firm where business requirements are changing on the daily and you can have certain plans that are in flight and then somebody comes to you like a week later and it's like, hey, we're launching a new product line and it needs to go live in 2 months, like then
Right.
we're much more likely to be a fit because we totally get that.
That's interesting because um being flexible, because you know that your ideal client, these companies are moving fast, they're pivoting, they're changing. And I think having the ability as like a firm, like from your standpoint, to be able to adapt and be flexible with the clients versus like we need a change request. We need to go through 2 weeks. We need to look at what you're doing here, give you an estimate. I think that flexibility and even the demeanor with it, the serving the customer, um, to what their needs are sounds absolutely critical and important in this environment.
Yeah, I think so too. Like I said, I think the space is very varied. There's room for all kinds of different players. This is the type of profile we go after. This is our working style. I definitely think that there's a need for it. It's like you said, if you work with a company, you're talking to your RevOps person, they've just been told by product, like in the example I gave you, like, oh, hey, we're launching this entirely new thing, or we changed our pricing, and your deadline to get this up and running is like in a month's time. You really can't afford to work with a partner that is going to make you spend 2 of those weeks going through a change order process
Right.
or a rescoping process. It just doesn't match reality.
Right. And for what the client needs, because they're moving fast, they're scaling.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
that's a great, that's awesome. So to switch gears a little bit, I mean, you know who your ideal clients are, you know, who you work with, who the right fits are. I guess what are your lead gen strategies? I know you're on LinkedIn, but I don't know if there's things behind the scenes. But what are some of your strategies for marketing and lead gen and that side of things?
Yeah, great question. I will not pretend that we have all of this all figured out yet. It's something that I'm still experimenting with. We're still learning as a business. Saying that, I would say there's maybe 3 or 4 different main channels that we're exploring and we think are promising. The first one, I'll just get it out of the way because I think this is it for the majority of agencies is referrals. Surprise, surprise.
Right.
Myself, several other people on my team have really broad, solid networks within this space. We've been doing solid work for 5+ years. Our customers move around, go to different places, take on new roles, get promoted, bring us with them. So I'm never going to discount referrals. Referrals are great. But at a certain size, you also start to feel how unpredictable those referrals are. I'm
Right.
sure I'm sure you can relate.
Yep.
You
Yep.
might get 5 1 month and then nothing the next month. And you're thinking as a business owner, how do I take this information and inform my hiring plans or my staffing plans? It's quite difficult. So yes, referrals, but I think there's some downsides. So the other things that we've been exploring are LinkedIn, like you said. Um, LinkedIn's really interesting. I always used to post sporadically. I've never been, completely anti LinkedIn or like, oh gosh, I would never make a post there. But it was really
Right.
sporadically, and it would usually be something that I consider to be really special. it's a company anniversary, or we just added somebody new to the team.
Right.
Um, a few months ago, I decided to change that, and now I'm much more committed to content creation as well as engagement on LinkedIn. And I will say I'm very, very curious personally to see where this leads after, say, like 6 or 12 months, because even after less than 3, I've already started to see changes. The number of inbound messages I've got directly related to LinkedIn is, yeah, I wish I had a nice number here to give.
Night and day, just like a
Oh, night
night
and
and
day.
day, right?
Night and day. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is definitely like, if you feel that you have any flair at all for writing, um, I would say, like, as an independent consultant or a business owner, like, give it a go, explore it. You'll, at a minimum, learn some interesting things. You'll see what kind of content resonates with your audience, for example, if even if you don't get direct leads. So yeah, LinkedIn. And then 2 more things. One is just outbound sales, various different channels. Um,
Is that like even phone calls, emails, like
yes,
just
but I have a salesperson who does that.
perfect,
That
perfect.
that's another example of me delegating. I don't think that I don't have the fortitude, let's say, to make cold calls. I'd be too shy.
Right,
Anyway,
right.
I have a salesperson who's great. Her name is Sam. Um, and yeah, she's been exploring some different outbound strategies. But it's still early days there. A lot of it can feel a little bit like awareness building more than anything. Um, and we've had this discussion around sort of like, where does the marketing aspect of this end and the sales aspect start? Which
Right.
again is kind of like philosophical point, but
Yeah, like the pretty much the marketing funnel. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Um, and then
Um,
what about internal Salesforce ecosystem networking? Because I know you're doing like the referrals on the client side and things like that, the LinkedIn, the calls to the clients. It seems like you're very client centric and trying to talk to your potential customers. What about networking within the Salesforce ecosystem and trying to get things to move there? Has that been working, or do you do that at all?
do you mean with account executives or
AEs or like other partners or other consultants and going to, Dreamforce and trying to network with other Salesforce folks or
yeah, good question. That was going to be the last thing I touched upon. I would say that it's also relatively new that we've been exploring that in earnest. Um, I think for myself, not coming from a sales background, I come from customer support technically. Not having a sales background, I think it was hard for me to understand how I should be engaging with the AEs on our accounts. And so I don't think I did a particularly compelling job when I tried that in the past. Now that we have somebody who is actually well versed in sales, we've been making more progress there. I think we're understanding better how that partnership can look, and how I don't know how we can sort of mutually provide each other with useful information. I know
right,
it's a
help
little
help
bit,
each other out, leads and projects and
yeah,
scratch my back, I'll scratch yours a little bit, right? Partner up.
in a way. But I think what's interesting is that I used to have the idea that, if you got a conversation with an AE, then you had to have to do your best to say, yes, of course, this is something we'd be interested in and we can do. But other people, AEs included, have told me, no, you want to be transparent about where you can provide value, because an
Right,
AE does not want to take the risk of putting you onto one of their accounts, and it turns out that you don't have the technical or industry expertise, you don't deliver, they damage that customer relationship. It's not beneficial for the partner either, because obviously that AE is not going to work with you again, and word will
right,
get around in their team. um, so actually, being more transparent and saying, like, no, we don't have this capability, or no, we don't do this, but we do this. So if you have any of these types of situations or customers in your book of business, love to talk. That has been definitely a worthwhile adjustment. I feel like the types of conversations we've been having, um, since beginning to approach the conversations more like that, they've definitely felt different.
Makes sense. Um, and I have a next question, but again, not to you've been given already so much what I would call advice. I think there's so much valuable info in here on even like your journey and things that are working. And I think it's a ton of valuable info for partners and people trying to launch. But if you were to boil down maybe one piece of advice to give like a Salesforce partner that's starting up or that's a consultant or a freelancer like that you were the
Mhm.
situation you were in
Yeah.
to launch, what's like maybe one piece of advice that they could kind of take back and think about when they're trying to launch or scale or start out a agency?
Hmm. One Piece. Um, Maybe be brutally honest with yourself. Like, what are you doing this for? Like, is it because you really enjoy certain types of work or working with certain types of people? Great, go towards that. Is it because you want to make money? Like, okay, focus on that. That's like totally valid. There are plenty of ways to make really good money in this space through delivering value. Is it because you want a flexible lifestyle? Okay, well then don't do what I did and take on like 8 clients. Like I think
Right.
just a little bit of forethought and self-reflection is valuable. I mean, in many, many areas of life, right? Not just
Yeah.
stuff business. Yeah, that will allow you to hopefully focus a bit more on areas that are meaningful to you, that you enjoy, that bring you closer to your goals. Um, and will help you avoid some pitfalls that might at first seem enticing, but maybe just aren't in line with what you want long term.
That That's really great advice because knowing your why essentially,
Mm,
if you are chasing money, it's your business will look different, right? If you're chasing freedom, it's going to look different because running a business, you're not necessarily free either, right? You actually might be taking on more work. And I
yeah,
think that's one of the things that a lot of people think, oh, I want the freedom I want. It's like, well, you might not really have the freedom that you think you're going to get when you're building an organization. I think that's really powerful because it's also the things you have to go through. You have to be able to work through those. And if you don't know why you're doing it and going through challenges and hiring and going through pitfalls and getting back up, you have to have a why
yeah,
and
is
know what that is.
true. 100% true. Like, even if you're a really, talented, hardworking person, you're still going to have ups and downs. You're going to have things that are totally outside of your control that test your patience and uh, various other aspects of your personality. And yeah, having that why, like you said, helps you pick yourself back up, keep going, come back stronger. And one thing I would add is, in my experience, um, you should also be prepared for your why to change over time. Like, maybe when you start out, you have a really strong financial focus, um, and then you've been doing things for a couple of years, you making a really solid amount of money, but you feel burnt out, or you're looking for a different type of challenge, or the variety is not there for you anymore, and you're somebody that really likes learning new things. Um, yeah, it's good to try and bake in a certain degree of flexibility for yourself, like having the ability to pivot. Um, if you can manage it, then it gives you a lot more options than otherwise.
And knowing when to pivot and then actually pivot, right? Because
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, you can't necessarily do it immediately. It's like you wake up one day and you're like, yeah, I think I want to go and learn NetSuite instead.
right.
It's
Uh,
probably not uh, viable.
Yep. Yep. Everybody, I got news to announce.
Yeah,
Company meeting. We're doing NetSuite starting tomorrow. Right.
yep, yep. Although I have heard of people doing things like that, so who am I to say it's not possible?
Awesome. This has been awesome. I just have one final question. Where's Catherine and CandyBox, and where do you see things going for you in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think I would feel I would feel really great about the business if I could say two things. So one, would be if we were recognized as, one of the top, if not the top player in the space we operate within. So it's like, hey, you're a B2B SaaS startup or scale up, you want to be strategic about your GTM tech strategy, you should go talk to CandyBox. Like, they're the experts. That would make me very happy. But I think on the other side, like I want to have a reputation as being a great employer. I would not feel good about the business achievements if it didn't take into account the people, like the people that you work with who form your team as a consulting practice. Like I've been trying to find a better way of saying this for a long time, because it doesn't sound good, but like they're your product, and I mean that in the best possible way. Like if you have great people, like they're going to be what your customers keep coming back for, because they love working with them, because they know they're so smart, because they make them feel like they're not alone in the crazy world of CRM and RevOps. So I want to make sure that as we hopefully grow, and take on more customers, larger accounts, whatever that may be, that we still keep that focus on our people, because really that's what CandyBox is, like a great team of people enjoying the work they do. Maybe not when it's data migrations, but the rest of the time, yes. And feeling like we're a workplace that respects people and provides great career opportunities.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's well said. That's a great just perspective and just way to grow a business. They'll want to work harder. They'll be happy. It
Yeah.
sounds like it's a great candy box. I don't know if it's a good, I don't know if it's a good analogy, but that's awesome. It was great having you on today, Kathryn. That was fantastic. It was great hearing about candy box and your journey and everything. And I really appreciate you having being on the episode today.
Anytime, John. It was really nice chatting with you.